Ladies and gentlemen, we're here for another Doodle Diary. Today we're going to be doing Majora's Mask. First things first, let's talk about what we're doing here. Now, you'll see it's a different size paper to different color. I've already done a little bit of watercolor on it. I did this on watercolor paper, and at first I thought I was going to use watercolors all the way through, but I couldn't find them. So I went back to the tried and true, wonderful Prismacolor markers, and they're great on particular types of paper, but I would not use them on watercolors again, because the watercolor paper was it sucked up the ink quickly and stuff, and it added like a grit to the paper. You know, when it gets wet, it has a little bit of a pull to it, and it felt bad on my markers ultimately, so I kind of shied away. I'll shy away from using them in the future on watercolor paper, at least in an abundance. Now, I will be doing a whole lot more watercolors, and I don't think the Doodle Diary will have the watercolors, and if I do share the watercolor videos, there'll be different videos, but Doodle Diaries will be primarily for little doodles and pencils and markers type stuff. I don't know, maybe I'll do Doodle Diary with a watercolor. I mean, you start off with a little doodle and a little watercolor doodle, because I'm not really going to take my artwork there serious. I will do commissions like I'm doing here, and that will be serious. And the work, I want to make sure to supply you with a wonderful product. But as far as me practicing and playing, I still will be passionate about what I'm doing, but I like to know mentally when I get into it, I'm not trying to, you know, be Da Vinci or anything. I'm just trying to be Patrick, exploring and experimenting with a new medium. And that will be that's how I look at it. And I think everyone should do that. Don't ever expect yourself to be amazing and put out face-meltingly awesome work the first time you do anything. And you'll be able to practice better. You'll feel free. You'll feel, you know, an emotional burden lifted off from you, because, you know, you won't feel like, oh, no. You know, you're allowing yourself to mess up. But that's going to be cool. I can't wait to do it, because watercolors, I've got some watercolors. I bought some, you know, a few markers, and of course I did some watercolors, but I was using a palette of watercolors that was really old, and I bought on sale at Hobby Lobby for like ages ago, and they were not good at all. Like, first off, they were a step above like the stuff you would get for a crafting class. And I guess that's good to practice with, but really, I've used the newer watercolors in comparison to, you know, the tubed watercolors. And of course, they still make, you know, little palette watercolors that are more professional, but I've used both of them, and I will tell you right now that it is like using two completely different things. They have some very base similarities, like you're adding water. You're using water as the delivery system for this pigment, because it is powdered, and it's much like makeup, I guess, but not as easily applied. Because I've seen makeup inside of one of those little makeup holders. They're fairly easy to smudge. It's really terrible, and that may be the time span that I used it in. Like, it's been sat there and allowed to cake and harden and dry and become terribly hard to reactivate with water. But the tubes, of course, as we know, are liquidy already, like a paste, and then you can it's easier to control the amount of pigment that you add to the water. And I got a little palette that I bought at Walmart, oddly enough, for like $4, and it folds out. It even has a little thumb hole, so I can put my thumb in it and look fancy. But I don't know. It's just shy of like one. You know, it's just the size probably where it may get in your way if you was to travel with it. So they make smaller palettes you can get on Amazon, and little things that you can. They've actually got ones with paint in them, and they got water brushes that have water you can load inside the brush, and you squeeze it out into the bristles and dip it in the pigment. So there's a lot of cool ways to watercolor. And I used to not really hate watercolors, but I used to go, nah, watercolors are not for me. Acrylics all the way. You know, like I used to use acrylics constantly. Like, that was my choice. And I still love acrylics. And you can water acrylics down real good, and you can use them on, as like a wash on a board or whatever you're painting on, illustration boards, whatever. There's tons of different places you can put that acrylic paint. But I really want to work with the truly fluid nature of watercolors, and I think that's going to be really fun to experiment with. And I like to do things like that. I like to create in different ways. I don't like to I like to stay on one thing, and that's good. But I also like to jump around, and it's almost like, you know, where you work with one thing more professionally. Like you say, I would build puppets, and I sketch puppets and do things, and I make that more professionally. I would also like to take a little bit of a break from my art and do other types of art, like whittling. And I've been trying to work with making arrowheads, and I'll let you know more about that as it goes on. Hold on one second. I got to decline this 1 second. 1 second. We're almost done here. Let me make sure to tell them 1 second. It's a Skype call. Hold on 1 second there. I didn't put it on Do Not Disturb. I didn't think. Okay. Let's see here. Back to it. But I want to take a little vacation away from, like, say, my other type of art. And I know other artists do this as well. You see, you know, they stay with doing one thing for so long. Like, say you're somebody that makes monsters for a living. You make latex masks and you sculpt constantly, but every now and again you just want to take a step back, get some illustration board and some acrylic paints and just draw. Just create those monsters in a more two-dimensional world as opposed to 3D, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I actually love that idea because, you know, I really do love almost everything about art and creating. I love cooking. I love to create in that way, too. I would never want to be a chef. I don't envy Gordon Ramsay, you know. But the creating of something that someone's going to enjoy. Sorry, I forced create out there. That was great. That's some great work I'm doing here with my words. But I love to be able to create something. And when this guy or girl opens this, I'm fairly certain it's a dude, opens this piece of artwork that they commissioned from me, and they get to hang it on their wall and enjoy it, and get to see it every day and enjoy it every day, you know, that makes me happy. And that's the point I like about art. I love to be able to create. And even though I say to people, if they talk about, you know, drawing, man, I can't even draw a stick figure, which is the unbelievable, that's just the generic thing everyone says. There's nothing wrong with it, but when you hear that a lot as an artist. And I got a kick out of Will Terrell actually mentioning that in one of his videos. He hears people say that at conventions because he does comic books and things, but they talk about that. And that's very nice, and I understand that's a flattering way to say, I can't believe how amazing you are at this. I can't even fathom, you know, I mean, in a way, that's what they're saying. But I always think to myself, yeah, you could do this. Any human being can put their mind to something and do it. And I really think that the psychological hurdles some people put on themselves, they look at something like that and they just can't, they truly don't have can't fathom it, I should say. They can't understand how it goes about. And some things you're not supposed to understand. It's like when I look at a rocket flying in the air, I have no idea how that rocket came to be. I mean, I know it's made of metal and very intelligent individuals, and they started out not knowing how to do that. But over time, they can tell you every piece that is inside of said giant space rocket. And that's amazing to me, you know? But I could do that if I put my mind to that. I mean, you can learn and do things. You can discover stuff. I mean, rocket science, yeah, that's going to be a little tougher, but you're going to have to put your mind to anything you do in life. That's what I'm getting at. That's the example. I love the way, you're going to be like thinking, man, Patrick just put drawing and rocket science in the same boat. But it is in a way designing and engineering. Whether I'm designing a monster from scratch, like some of the puppets I've created, and created and love. You know, sometimes I have reference. Sometimes the couple puppets I have now, I've not done any reference to. And then you've got, something like this where I have to redesign. I have to take, and make this again. Even though I already have reference, I already have tons of fan art that people have been putting online to base my reference off from, to draw. I still have to draw it like I would draw it, and and color it the way I do. I will point out here, those beautiful paint markers here I'm using, bought at Walmart, $1.80, $50, something like that, amazing. They work great here, and I had to, you see me doing a lot of work here on the highlights. it soaked so quickly into that paper. And the paper was very, it's watercolor paper. It's meant for watercolors, for lots of water. It was so hard. I mean, it turned out beautiful. I'm proud of it. That's why I'm showing it off here. It's beautiful, and I hope that the recipient enjoys it as much as I enjoyed creating it. But I really had a bad go here on the watercolor paper. And that's one thing I want you to learn from this one, is that don't use markers, especially very expensive markers, because it feels like it sucks the expensive out of it. And there I go signing it. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, of course, say below. If you've got a commission, ask below, or hit me up on Twitter or Etsy. All these links I'm talking about will be below. I hope you enjoyed the show. There's the links here. Click them right now, and let's hear that music.